Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Reconnection Podcast with Jordan and Lynn. Today, we are excited. We're going to talk about the Wood Dragon Year and the Wood Snake Year and how that connects and interacts with the Western astrology. But before we get into that, we're going to dive into a recap of the Wood Dragon Year as we get into the Wood Snake Year, which is going to begin January 28th, 29th. That's the year of the snake. That's going to begin that day. It's also the new moon in Aquarius, so that's really interesting. But before we dive into the snake, let's go into the Wood Dragon Year. Jordan, I want to ask you, how was this year for you? What themes came up? How do you connect with that dragon energy and the wood energy?
Gonna probably put you on the spot, so hopefully you know the answer. If not, that's okay. So in the Chinese zodiac, the lunar zodiac, does each of the elements get represented for 12 years? So it's like wood, 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 then it goes on to the next one. Is that why we're going from wood dragon to wood snake, or are you not that familiar?
Yeah, so every 2 years we stay in that element. So the last 2 years it was water. So it was water rabbit and then water tiger. And then moving on, it changes the zodiac. So you change every sign, but the element stays the same every 2 years. So it's a
For
2 year
2 years.
cycle. Hmm.
No, understandably so, and then I'll answer your question now. So I think that's very interesting and curious then that we had the pairing of the dragon and the snake, with them being such similar symbology, of course. And I
Yeah.
think for me that the dragon year and dragons in general represent obviously a sort of mysticism, and with that mysticism
Yeah.
comes kind of entering into spaces that we aren't familiar with, going into the unknown, if you will. And I think that
Hmm.
that's kind of what this last year has been, is we've been entering so much uncharted territory. 2024 was a space in which I feel like all of us were like, is any of this real? What the hell is going on? Are we in a movie right now? And I think that that really
Hmm.
exemplifies dragon energy. It's this mystical, untangible, and an almost undefinable space that really is transformative, because dragons are also seen as great alchemizers and they're seen as great transformers. And I think that a great analogy I heard from a channeler at one point, and it feels like how this year has been for me, is that um, they were talking about specifically black dragons, because they believe that each dragon has a
Hmm.
different type of energy to them. And they were
Right.
saying that the black dragons were very present over this last year. And the purpose of the black dragons are to come
Hmm.
into a space and suck out all the negative energy of it.
Hmm.
But during that time in which the negative energy is being sucked out, we can actually, it's felt more, it's expressed more, it's seen more. And I feel like that's what this last year has been, is although a lot of negative energy has been transformed and been changing and we've been going through, we have unfortunately had to viscerally feel it. We had to visually see it, and we had to experience a lot of darkness. And here I
Hmm.
am going to go again with a Harry Potter analogy. It's almost like being in the presence of a Dementor. Being in presence
Mm.
of something that's like literally sucking out, all the negative aspects and facets of what is in existence. But again, this is more in a cleansing way to make space for light and other things to come through. So to recap how Dragon Year has been for me, Dragon Year has been a very ethereal, mystical experience that I almost can't put words to. But this
Mhm.
transformation has felt cleansing, it has felt renewing, and I feel like I'm at the precipice as we're moving into the snake year to being in a brand new space, in a space I probably have never been in my life. How about for you?
Yeah, I love what you just said. I love this analogy of the Dementors. It's so clear in my mind. I'm like, oh my goodness, black dragons are Dementors. And as you were telling that story, I thought about a story that I heard when I was attending a class about ayahuasca. It was ayahuasca from a biomedical perspective, and it
Hmm.
was talking about how this person um, was talking to shamans, and they were saying, what do you see when you are doing the icaros, doing the medicine songs, when you're holding space for somebody as they're sitting with you know ayahuasca? And they're saying there's times where we'll see dragons twisted together, almost looking like they're sitting over DNA, like in that double helix kind of form.
Hmm.
And you often see like symbology of like two dragons dancing together, or like, that kind of the image. Because I can imagine that too, but
Well, and like yes, and like almost a double helix spiral in which they're in a dance with.
mhm,
Even like the Avatar: Last Airbender, when they meet the fire dragons, that's what they do. Is
yes.
exactly what you're saying. So continue,
Yeah.
please.
And then if you think about like what's happening, yin and yang are so deeply connected. When you plant the seed, the tree the imprint of the tree is there, right? And then
Mm,
when the tree is beginning to die, the seed is also there, right? The seed of that continuing to grow that. So with that black dragon that's removing and purifying and cleansing and clearing the path for this year, all of the energy and all the obstacles, which are happening individually, personally, on many levels, but collectively as well. We saw it so much in the collective sphere of our world. With that cleansing, there's also beginnings, and there's
mm,
also like openings and more spaciousness for like more authentic, expansive parts of ourselves to come through. And I think that's what's beautiful about that dragon energy, is that it is mythical in nature. And so even mythical parts of ourselves that we didn't think were real, or we didn't think maybe were achievable or possible, right? Because myth is sort of like, it's sort of like a fiction story, right? Like it's not really, could be true, could be not true, but it's representing an archetype within ourselves
mm,
that is available to our deepest and utmost of potential. And so I think that this year, yes, was a deeply cleansing year, because dragon energy is very much about clearing, and it's powerful and it's demanding. And also at the same time, it's extremely powerful at like activating the deepest parts of ourselves, the parts of ourselves that maybe we thought were not possible. I definitely
mm.
see that in myself this year, just reflecting on my own experience of the wood dragon year. And we're going to dive more into the wood element after this, but we're focusing a lot on the dragon year just as a recap. And dragon year for me, I began this year in Vietnam, which was like a huge portal for me, initiation for me, life learning for me. And I definitely had to get out of my comfort zone and face a lot of fear and face a lot of shadows this year for sure. And sit with myself and be really introspective. I remember for my birthday this year in August, I did a silent meditation. That was my day of just silence and allowing myself to just see what is truly there. And giving myself that space allowed me to continue to transform and move and, you know, clear the path for me to be here now. And it was a really powerful year, definitely. It was really powerful. And I do resonate with that, my mythical powers coming online. There's so much things that a year ago, 2 years ago, I would have been like, what? How could this be? How could you do these things? How can you tap into that energy? But I'm in this moment. I think that wood energy is really, really active a lot this year on many, many levels. So with that, any reflections on that, and even your take and feelings and perspectives on the wood element
Yeah,
this
no,
year?
it's funny because that's where my thoughts were initially already going,
Yeah.
and I think it's also very curious that the dragon and snake both have a transformative energy to them. The snake shedding
Mhm.
its skin and then dragging, and everything we just spoke about.
Yep.
And it's interesting it being paired with wood because wood within itself also has a transformative aspect to it and also a
Yeah.
very cleansing aspect to it too. And I think that's something we talked about
Mm.
was the cleansing of the last year. And I think we're going to
Mhm.
experiment with more of that next year. And because wood in Chinese medicine is seen as the liver system, and both in Western medicine and actual Chinese traditional medicine, the liver is responsible for cleansing and clearing and purifying and moving all of this energy throughout our body. And so I think that that's a really great recap of what wood is that
Mhm.
it is a transformative and cleansing process. And I think
Mhm.
another aspect that I don't necessarily think about as much is that wood is also attached to extreme growth. And,
Mhm.
and for obvious reasons, that wood and the trees are constantly growing and expanding. However, I've also been told the symbology of wood is seen as our first few years if we look at all the elements from like a timeline of our life. And our first few years are wood years because we are growing so rapidly. We are changing so rapidly. We are entering
Mm-hmm.
new stages in such a rapid progression. So I feel like taking that symbology and looking at these 2 years being wood years, I think that these 2 years we're going to see so much rapid growth and so much
Yes.
rapid change that's almost like going from baby to teenager. We're not going to
Yes.
recognize the person that's at the end of this wood phase and
Oof.
at the end of this
Yes.
wood stage. And I think at the end of the day, once you become a teenager, like, oh, this is awkward, this is weird, I don't know how to handle my energy in my body. But eventually that enters adulthood. And I think that this is going to be a crash course in going from baby to adult in a completely
Mm-hmm.
new way of our consciousness and way of being. Anything else to
Wow.
add to just the wood aspect? Because I kind of took it a little bit far away, but you can bring it back.
No, I love that. I love the pieces that you brought in here. I love thinking about the representations of wood in nature. So when I'm here in Costa Rica, I look at bamboo,
Mm.
and bamboo, it has deep roots that are going into the soil. So it's very connected to the earth element. And those deep roots keep it rooted, keep the tree rooted to the ground. So when there's wind, when there's troubles, when there's, hardships in life, and let's just say in nature, when there's wind, there's storms, it can stay rooted throughout all of that. So I think this year was a crash course lesson of like, how can we stay rooted, deeply rooted in ourselves, in our practices, in the things, the self-care that really supports us in our purpose, because the Buddha energy is also on some level purpose. Like it's our vision, it's our goals that we set, it's our dreams. So it's like, can we connect with those deepest parts of ourselves, which also very aligns with the dragon energy, right? Like, can we peel back all the layers to come back to who our true self is and be rooted in that, just like wood, and grow tall all the way up to the sky and expand. And I
Yeah.
feel like that to me feels very much like the wood element, wood energy. And at the same time, I love what you mentioned about it can be this really expansive and overabundance of growth, because from a Western astrology perspective, wood is very much connected to Jupiter. And
Mm.
Jupiter is that planet of expansion and growth. And then on the imbalance side of that, it's excess. It's too
Mm.
much growth. It's overgrowth in the garden, that where your whole garden transforms and you can't recognize what you planted anymore, right? It's like you're taking on too much. And I think with this wood dragon year, we were able to kind of face both, like the imbalances of overgrowth, of too much capitalism, of too much X, Y, and Z, whatever it is, and also not enough, right? Where are those
Mm.
places that need more fertilizer, need more love, need more TLC, need more sun and shade, whatever, right? And I think wood is also that energy that loves to improve. It's always striving for something. And so there's a lot of aspiration and becoming inspired and realigning yourself. So there's a lot of that energy. And I love bringing it back to the body and the physiology and the anatomy from a Chinese medicine perspective. So the liver energy, which is very much about, yes, cleansing, purifying, detoxifying the body, clearing out toxins, purifying the body from environmental toxins, all of those important things that the liver does. It's a master detoxer. And also at the same time, it has this really special relationship with blood and yin. So
Mm.
that's sort of like my focus nowadays, especially with my practice, is like blood and yin. Like I'm so fascinated with that. And our liver is such an important part of blood and yin. And it communicates a lot with blood and using blood. So, for example, for somebody that has menstrual cycle, your liver is extremely important in storing the blood that you need for your menstrual cycle. And so when we are using up our blood, whether we're overworking or stressed or on the computer a lot, or we're just really pushing ourselves and we're not restoring our blood restores or yin, then our liver easily gets stuck. It easily gets imbalanced because we don't have enough blood to move out and nourish other parts of our body, our menstrual cycle, our wombs, and our uteruses. So there's a lot of, I think, nuances to the wood energy, the liver energy.
Yeah, and I want to just,
Yeah.
before we move beyond the wood energy, there's so many things there. If it's okay to cut you off
Yeah.
here, there's
Yes,
so many things there
please.
that I would like to expand upon real quick that you just like made me think of. I think the
Yeah.
first spot I wanted to talk about or just make a statement on is I think you did such a great job of encapsulating the fact that wood, it could be representative of excess and overabundance and that Jupiter
Mhm.
expansion, because I think that it's such a good representation of what we're seeing in our class system right now and what we're
Mhm.
seeing in the world as a whole. There's so many areas that are so overly abundant in food and in resources and things.
Right.
And it's a great Chinese medicine metaphor that when there is excess, when there's abundance, when there's too much somewhere, there has to be deficiency and
Somewhere
lack
else.
somewhere else. And I think
Yes.
that's what we're seeing being played out on the major stage here. And then to go back to the liver and the representations you were saying to physiology,
Mhm.
the liver is also kind of the keeper and the gatekeeper of sleep. And I think that we've been
Mm.
seeing so much through this wood dragon year, some insomnia, the waking up at 3 a.m., the liver time.
Yes.
And so I
Oh my
think that
gosh,
has a huge
yes.
flavor of what we're seeing in wood. And again, to go to physiology and wood, when you brought it to menstruation, which is something that I wouldn't have brought it to, is we're also seeing just a huge increase in infertility and PCOS in the womb space
Right.
being very, very unhealthy. So I think that's another thing that this
Right.
wood is kind of playing with. And then I
Mhm.
think last but not least, what you also like planted the seed for in my mind is the fact that wood is so integrally in the liver system in Chinese medicine. Is it connected to sight, to vision, to utilizing of our
Right.
eyes? And I
Mhm.
think with this overutilization of technology and being exposed to artificial lights and looking at screens, I think we're tapping out our wood and not
Mhm.
realizing it. And that's why we are creating these infertility problems, these sleep problems, and everything else that we're seeing is because there is this connection to the wood. So I
Yes,
just wanted to
yes.
like honor everything you said and say
Wow.
absolutely to all of that.
No, I love that, and I feel like you summarized it so beautifully, and I think that's a good transition into Wood Snake Year because as you were speaking about the dragon, when we started talking today, it was like you had mentioned the dragon is mythical, and I thought, yes, it is mythical, and the snake is in ancient China, the snake was sometimes seen as a lesser dragon. It holds
Mm.
spiritual and mythical significance as well. And it's almost like they're kind of the similar archetype on two different coins. It's like
Yeah, it almost
the
feels like the snake is like the rooted, grounded, earthly version
it's the
of the.
earth.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. And so like it's interesting because this year in this wood dragon year, it was more ethereal and more understanding spiritually and healing like spirit down. And then this wood snake year is going to be earth going up, It's going to be very physical and very like shifting of energies on that level because a friend had mentioned to me snakes stay low to the ground. They hug the
Mm.
earth. And so this year, with this wood snake year, it would make sense that it's going to be very, very connected to our earth body, the body of this earth, the planet earth itself, nature, like it's going to be very connected because the snake itself is hugging the earth. It stays low, it stays hidden in the grass, it's that kind of like energy that kind of stays below the surface until it's ready to strike.
Yeah.
And I think there's a big time component I think with this next year of the wood snake because with the wood to kind of recap this last little note on the wood energy, the wood really benefits from being in alignment with time. If you think about the wood
Mm.
collective energy, wood being very dominant in a society, it's very connected to time. It's very connected to what can we get done in these hours at this time. It's very pinpointed, wants to like get things done. And I think this year is going to be, yeah, very connected to that sense of time and how we're connected to time. And that is interconnected with yin because I definitely feel like this next year is snake to me represents this really it has a mystical quality, but it's this deep wisdom. It's this deep emotional
Mm.
depth. It's this adaptability and it's connected to it knows when to strike. snakes are the ultimate hunters because they can strike at a time that okay, this is right, right? And that is very connected to knowing yourself so much, knowing your own rhythms and your own energy so well that you know when to use it when you feel that, when it's right, when it's
Yeah.
intuitively right. And so to me, that feels very yin. You're waiting, you're allowing, you're kind of you're receiving until you know when it's time to be young.
Yeah.
Like that's powerful to me. And so as I'm saying all those things, what's coming up for you?
Yeah, no, it's funny because when I read your little excerpt on snake symbology,
Yeah.
and I at first, using my Western lens, was like, a snake's a yin animal, and
Yeah.
then I reminded myself that most indigenous cultures actually saw snake as actually the ultimate yin, and I
Yeah, yeah.
think that there's so many quick areas I want to step into and so many different areas of the world that I just want to bring into this that can really
Mhm.
give us an idea of what snake symbology might be. So let's remove ourselves from China for a second. And I'll give you the quick story of St. Patrick in the Irish region. And St. Patrick is said to be the person who rid the island of Ireland of snakes, and what that
Mm.
symbology actually meant and what that was supposed to be a metaphor. It was ridding the land of its sacred divine wisdom, of its paganism,
Mm.
of the culture it once held. And so it was almost
Yeah.
the fall of the divine feminine, and that those divine energies of the Ireland area that were being warded
Mhm.
out from that region. And snake energy and snakes in general have been villainized throughout the last couple millennia because they
Right.
have represented such divine feminine wisdom, and it's something that this masculine energy has been very, very much so afraid of. So if we look
Mhm.
at that region of Ireland and seeing that there, we can also come to a Mesoamerica where we see the feathered serpent, which might be seen as somewhat of a dragon energy, but is more so meant to be a snake energy. And that was also
Mhm.
supposed to be representative of the divine wisdom of those cultures. I mean, that's why almost all of Mesoamerica were some form of snake. And I think it was due to this understanding of this divine feminine wisdom. And then I think last but not least, the story and the narrative that has reigned true the most the last 2,000 years and has been kind of the narrative that's been spread is that the divine feminine was the corrupter of all of this wisdom by listening to the snake. So I don't believe that that's the true aspect of the story, but we do have to bring in when Eve was tricked by the snake, what that represents. And what it represents is secrets and divine wisdom being revealed. The snake revealed something to Eve that was being hidden, that was being undersurfaced, that wasn't allowed to be coming to fruition, pun intended. And I think that's what we're going to see this snake year, is I think we're going to see so many truths, so many secrets, so many things that we've been veiled to and things that have been intentionally hidden coming to light, because that's what the snake brings. It brings up all of these secrets. It allows these secrets to be transformative and allows for the shedding of the layers of the skin of the snake because these things have been hidden for so long. And I think it's already interesting that we're leading into this. We're seeing, especially a lot in American culture right now, so many hidden truths, so many secrets, so many terrible things coming to light. But I think that that's kind of what the energy of the snake coming back online is. And I think that's what we're in the heat of at this time. Does that resonate?
Yeah, definitely. And what's interesting is before I slips away, I want to bring in the Western astrology here and the big kind of themes that are going to happen in 2025. So we're going to be entering into Jupiter in Cancer, which is very much a different energy from Jupiter in Gemini, which has been super active this year, right? Jupiter in Cancer is much more care focused, yin focused, water focused,
Mm.
which again, within Western astrology, Scorpio would be water. And I think for me, Scorpio feels most connected to the snake,
I was going
you
to
know?
say that because it does have
Yeah.
the Plutonian energy of transformation and change and all of
Yep.
those things. And I think that we can relate that to the snake as well.
Yeah. And then we think of, I love to bring it back to nature and think about what the snake does in its natural, how it naturally lives. And the snake is going to shed its skin. So, like, there's going to be a lot of shedding of skin, a lot of shedding of truths, a lot of shedding of false truths, illusions, and
Mm.
things that in order for us to kind of get to that core place. Because if we want to relate it to the Scorpio energy, Scorpio wants to get down and penetrate into that deep, deep, deep truth of exactly who you are. And that is a place of regeneration. Once you get down into those layers, once you touch that ultimate true self, that is a place of renewal, regeneration, new beginnings. You know what I mean? I feel like that energy is going to be really active this year. And then we're going to have the ingress of the North Node into Pisces. So again, another water sign, a huge placement, that North Node, South Node axis, which is the collective, movement of purpose and vision and gearing our intentions collectively into Pisces, into that water sign that is all about encompassing everything, disillusion of the self, disillusion of the falsehoods, coming into a place that's more compassionate, more sensitive, more intuitive, more emotionally in depth. And I think that's going to be really powerful. And then I thought about also from a nature perspective, I'm going to tell you a story that happened to me maybe 2-3 weeks ago. I was walking out in the garden and I was harvesting some vegetables to eat. And I had a moment where I was kind of down. In Costa Rica, you have to be really mindful of where you're walking, where you're stepping, because you don't know what you're going to step on. You have to really be present. And so I had a moment where I was walking down, I was standing by like a bush of leaves. I was harvesting some things and I had this moment of, okay, wait, something's off. And I need to check out my surroundings. And I look over to the side, to the right of me, and I see a huge snake underneath me. And I don't know if it was a boa constrictor. It was a big boy. And so what do I first do? My instincts are like, okay, I need to back up. I need to move slowly. And I move away. And I had a moment of feeling a lot of fear with that, like feeling so much fear, just feeling really shook up, like, adrenaline's pumping, all the things. And, I tell the people that, are on the land and we try to go find the snake again, but it's nowhere to be found. So it left. And I keep thinking, oh, maybe that was for me to really sit with all those feelings that came up around it. And then as I started thinking about it more, all the fear and kind of like those negative connotations of seeing a snake came up for me, right? Like, oh, this is scary. And oh my gosh, what am I going to do if I see another snake? All those scenarios came up. But then I started asking, well, how does the snake then benefit its environment and ecosystem? Well, actually, the snake is a predator for the squirrels and the things that are actually eating all of the fruit and eating all these things, causing this imbalance in the system. And so nature is always going to balance itself out. It's always going to harmonize itself. So in many ways with this wood snake year, there's a lot of harmonizing. With that wood dragon energy, it's a lot of transformation on more of a spiritual, ethereal, and trickling down into the physical. But then this year is harmonizing all of that and transforming. Those energies can meet. And I think it comes back to that wood energy is like, can we come to a place where we can find middle ground for the places that have an overabundance of growth, over excess, the places that don't have enough, and find that middle ground, find a harmonizing place so that all beings can be supported and healed and benefit and relieve the suffering. Because I love thinking about also from a wood perspective, the virtue we talk about in Chinese medicine. Each organ system, each element has a virtue. It has its highest quality to it. For the wood element and for the liver, it's benevolence. So it's the benefit of all beings. May all beings benefit from whatever is put into place, whatever practices are done, whatever systems are put into place. May all people benefit from that and not one side benefit and then one side suffer. So I think there's going to be a lot of that energy of harmonizing, rebalancing the scales, And so as I'm saying that, what's coming up for you?
No, I think this is a perfect segue into how these things are going to be playing out and represented throughout the year. Because everything you just said to me was very, very Aquarian. And so I think that before we step into Aquarius, which we might get ahead of ourselves, I think in the Capricorn time that we're in, this last little segue here, I think that the things that the snake and the wood snake in particular is pulling out of Capricorn, is I think it is those deep depths that Capricorn can enter into. You know how we say it has the sea code aspect to it. So I think that the aspect of Capricorn that the wood snake is pulling out is entering those deep depths that can be transformative and have information that they can carry us forward. And I think that what it's going to be carrying us forward into is this Aquarian energy, is that all those things that you speak of there, and is this quality of, it's funny because Aquarius is seen as the water bearer, and I almost think with the snake symbology here, that the snake is kind of going to be the water bearer of this upcoming year. How does that sit for you?
I'm getting chills as you're saying that. Yeah, that resonates for sure. And I mean, it's no coincidence, or maybe it is a coincidence, who knows, that the new moon in Aquarius of 2025 starts on the same exact day as the year of the wood snake. Come on, come on. We can't make this up, you know? So, anyways, when we talk about, yeah, from like an Aquarian perspective, I definitely feel like there's going to be that harmonizing of energies, the balancing of yin and yang for sure. And then I think as we move on into Pisces, I think similar themes of like activating our intuitive gifts, becoming more compassionate, becoming more watery, becoming more yin, letting go of those like, maybe false illusions or those things that our ego has kind of told us that we had to be, these systems that we had to be, but
Yeah.
instead coming back and shedding all those layers to become more in touch with like our true authentic selves. I think that's really, really important.
No, and I think that
Yeah.
the Piscean era there in that time of, I think March, for whatever reason, this might just be intuitive. I think that March is going to be a very, very big year of the wood snake for whatever reason. And as we had the equinox that comes there, which is the transition from Pisces to Aries, I feel like there's going to be some very, very, very potent energy around that time. And I'm going to quickly share a story for one of my past life regressions about that time of the year that is coming up in this moment now. So, in one of my past life regressions to a lifetime in Mesoamerica, in the Mexican region specifically, I experienced a spring spring equinox ceremony in which light hit the temples that we were present in at the time and created these dancing snakes on the wall at the beginning of springtime. So that's almost, for me, already the entering into spring reminds me of dancing snakes just from having that past life experience. So to me, I do feel like this springtime is going to be very potent in bringing out the snake energy. And then from a Chinese medicine perspective, we remember that wood is representative of spring. So there's another thing telling us, I think the springtime is going to be very, very activating to both the snake energy, but the wood snake energy as a whole. How does that land?
It definitely lands for sure. And it's really interesting. Um I think also from another level is like with this energy of this year, it's like being open and being adaptable because that snake wants to be kind of like it adapts to the earth's contours. And it adapts to its environment. So just being like open to what's possible. Like there's so much potentiality and like
Mm.
the wood element to me is creativity. It's like imagining the impossible. It's the innovation, it's the vision. So like part of this year is not only just like, yeah, facing the kind of unpeeling the layers and all those things, but it's like, what can we create, with these changing of energies, with this more like shifting into yin? Like that is an exciting place, I really feel. And
Well, and,
so,
and with your understanding of astrology, moving into Aries a little bit already, don't you think
yeah,
that the wood, the snake, the Aries, the fire at the beginning, like that's going to be a
yes.
lot?
It's gonna be strong. I mean, wood too. Wood is the element that dominates spring, right? So Aries is the beginning of spring. It's this beginning of like beginning of the new years in astrology. So that is going to be a really potent time. I also wanted to mention before we move on,
Yeah.
we're going to have eclipse season this year, but it's going to be in Virgo and Pisces, and I believe maybe Libra,
Mm.
but yeah, so it's going to be those archetypes being really activated. So again, that Piscean energy of like yin, coming back to yin. But to go back into Aries and not forget about Aries because it's a strong, strong energy here. But really, to me, it's like that fire energy can be really, really activated right now in that point of time. So finding a way where you can balance that fiery energy, because Aries can be rash, it can be impatient, it can be very, very fiery. And I feel like the snake also gives that very like fiery energy. Like it can snap, right? It
Yeah,
can
that
like
has
go,
that.
it can,
Yeah, literally.
yeah, I can go there. So like finding ways to slow down, get into your other body, right? Get back into the earth body, which is really important, I think, during that time. And then I think that also brings us really smoothly to Taurus, which is so much about the earth body.
Mm,
What do
I
you feel
agree.
for
Well, and
that
to
that time?
really wrap up one of the things you've been saying is, this overabundance that wood could sometimes like bring out. I think wood
Mm-hmm.
and Aries fire can be overly overabundant. So making sure you
Yep.
do find that balance that you just stated there, and moving more
Mm-hmm.
into the Taurus energy of May, April. I think the Taurian energy is probably a little more balancing than the Aries energy I was just saying, because always see Taurian energy as the homebody, as the grounded energy,
Mm-hmm.
as this very. I have a lot of Taurian friends that when I need practical advice and need to get out of Jordan land for a second, I ask them the question because they'll bring me back down to earth and practicality and all of those things. And I think that's an important balance that Taurus might bring and might allow this
Mm-hmm.
transformative, changing, growing, crazy energy of wood snake and give it a little more practicality and slow it down for the
Mm-hmm.
rest of the year. And that's kind of how I feel about the Taurian energy.
I love that. The last note I want to say on Taurus is I had mentioned the metaphor of the tree and how the tree and the bamboo is rooted. Taurus is a really good time. So that April, May time is a really good time to like build foundation,
Mm.
like build your connection to like your not only your own earth body, but like foundation to the earth. Like how do you connect to the earthy things, your sensations, like through your sensations, and find like what you love and what really nourishes you during that time. I think that's my big thing for Taurus.
No, I
What about
agree.
Gemini? Because I know you're a big air
Well, and
being.
that's what I was just thinking as you're already kind of going there. That I think that so Gemini is representative often of this artificial intelligence age that we're going into, this information
Mm-hmm.
age, the social media age, and I think
Mm-hmm.
that being paired with the wood snake, so this Gemini with the wood snake energy, then is we're going to see transformations and changes around those areas of life. So I think we're going to see
Yeah.
AI grow and get overly abundant and go into many spaces. I think we're going to see social medias and communications, and then just the amount of information that already feels overwhelming. I think we're going to have that much more information in this June Gemini time, because that's the only thing the wood snake is going to bring out is more in that, because Gemini already is so expansive. Do you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. And I also have to say, like, that Jupiter in Gemini that's present right now was sort of this
Mm,
huge major expansion because, again, Jupiter is that planet of expansion. Gemini is like representative of technology, AI, communications. And so it really put emphasis on that energy of expansion in that way. But in June, we're going to have an ingress of Jupiter into Cancer. So it's going to shift that energy, that like super air, super technology focus, super information focus to a deeper rooted, watery place that's going to be more. I wouldn't be surprised if we had conversations around like, okay, this is what AI can give us. It can give us so much information, but how can we actually do it with so much care? You know, how can we
mm,
actually understand that it's connected to all of the things, you know?
yeah.
And I would also be interested to see what conversations we have about water this year in terms
Well,
of like, yeah, water usage, water
yeah.
conservation, all of those pieces.
Well,
Yeah,
I
go
think it's
ahead.
interesting what you're saying, that Jupiter kind of going into Cancer for a little bit there, and I think this will be representative of us moving into the June July Cancer time. It's that
Mhm.
Cancer to me is often seen as just a very motherly homebody type of energy, and I think that
Mhm.
Snake having this Yin energy as well. I think it really is going to be this meeting of the mothers, meeting of the minds of this Yin
Mhm.
energy, to see that what can come of where we currently are at with all these new tools and resources. I think we're going to
Mhm.
get a really feminine yin perspective that has need to come out. And we're going to kind of
Mhm.
see it in June, July, how we can transform the snake energy, transform all of what we've created and come to right now, and make it more more rooted in the feminine, more rooted in the yin.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, to me, when I feel into Cancer this year, it makes me feel like cushiony, like
Mm.
soft and squishy. I don't know. I don't know why. It just makes me feel that way. I also want to mention that Cancer is represented by the crab, and the crab has this hard shell, like it has boundaries. And so I also feel like we're kind of going more into yin, we're softening, we're we're enjoying more gentleness and softness and reflection and even more connection to our own intuition. There's also a need to protect our peace and protect our safe space and be like a force for ourselves and others, because I feel like Cancer has that motherly energy, and the mother can be this extremely loving being, and it can be that fierce mama bear.
Yeah, no,
So there's that
absolutely.
energy too, I think, with that. And then let's go into Leo, because we both want to talk about Leo.
Yes. Well, and I think we've entered another fire sign here. So I think that
Yep.
collaboration of wood and fire is going to be a lot, is going to create a lot of energy and abundance and all of those things. And I think with
Hmm.
Leo time, Leo is, and I think paired with Aries, they're two very sovereign signs. Leo
Hmm.
is about self identity, it's about self, it's about heart space. So I think during the July, August time of the year, we're going to see a lot more about our individuality, our own sovereignty, what it means to hold the sacred space of ourselves. Because I think our sovereignty, our individuality, and a lot of aspects of our own personal power have been
Hmm.
being at play here, have been kind of been taken away from us or played with, or a lot of these paradigms coming up. So I think the
Hmm.
snake energy is going to transform a lot of that. And then I will say, and this is just kind of like a more abstract version of this, I think with this, identity of the celebrity that we're seeing, how it's kind of the fall of celebrity right now, I guess is the best way I have to say it. I think we're going to
Hmm.
see more of that in July and August because in me,
Mm.
symbology, Leo is it's the spotlight, it's the center stage, it is that identity. And you bring the wood snake into that, that's the revealing of secrets to those who are in the center stage, to those who are in the
Hmm.
spotlight, to those in those spaces. So I'm curious
Hmm.
on a cultural level if we'll see more evolution of what the definition of celebrity means during that July,
Hmm.
August time.
I do want to say with that, because we are really entering into this, we're in the age of Aquarius. It's like the balancing of energies. This wood snake year wants to
Mm.
harmonize those energies. So I'd be curious of that too, just to see what happens there. And also you can see it now how like there's less emphasis on like celebrities, and there's just more access to people, people on the internet and
No, and
people.
people like what
Yeah,
we're doing right now, like
yeah,
podcasters and YouTubers and stuff, the power is kind of being
right.
funneled and siphoned out of that and into those.
Yes, yes, exactly. So, one thing with the Leo season, the Leo is all about the heart. So, something that really activated for me this year, and I'm a Leo sun, have a lot of Leo in my chart. Something that super activated for me was the heart, and the heart matters, and all of the things around the heart space, because the heart is so much connected to who we are, our sense of purpose, our self worth, all those pieces. So I would be interested to see how all of those themes come online this year too.
And I'm excited
So
about that.
let's dive into Virgo.
I think that, and I'll let you take the reins because Virgo isn't my most familiar, but I know that Virgo is
Yeah.
a lot about health. And of course, it's this earth element here. And I think that,
Yes.
August, September, I think therefore we are going to see
Hmm.
innovative and transformative ways in which we do
Right.
health care, and things
Hmm.
surrounding that aspect of the body.
I love that you mentioned healthcare, because yeah, there's already so much transforming around that. But with Virgo itself, Virgo is the sign. It's an Earth sign, and it's a sign that is very connected to like the Earth, like Earth Mother, Earth Goddess. Um, it has that very like traditional ancient roots that are very connected to the feminine energy, but yet at the same time, it is this energy that's sort of metal in nature, that like loves systems and loves things to be certain ways, and sometimes
Mhm.
can be critical and overcritical to the point of perfectionism. So like Virgo, I feel like, is a time where there's like a lot of letting go. There's a lot of like shadow work and a lot of like reflection, and like just kind of like reality checks during that time, because when we're in Leo, it's like summertime vibes. Like everyone's just like summertime on the northern hemisphere. It's just summertime.
Yeah.
Let's go out. It's the vibes, let's go party, let's do the things. And then Virgo is sort of like that kick back into action, and it's like
It
a
almost sounds like
reality
what you're
check.
describing is like the fall from the high almost, where you have to like collect
For
yourself.
for sure. Virgo for sure. Sometimes it can be a little dampen on like the fun. But yeah, I mean, it's also a necessary reality check that many of us need, during that time, at least for me, because like you can't, so much of my Leo energy wants to just like, wee, and have fun, but
Yeah.
like you need to kind of bring it back down to earth. So I think
No.
that's very much that Leo Virgo dynamic there.
No, and I think that that's a perfect segue into Libra, in which we're getting into like this October time of the year, and I think
Yep.
that as we get into Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, the end of the year, I feel like that those energies mix so well with this wood snake energy that I think the end of
Mm,
2025 might be. I think it's gonna be a transformative year in general, but I think we're
for
gonna see
sure.
some really like peaks and heights of that transformation. So just starting with Libra being about balancing the scales, creating equality, creating justice. I think we're going to start
Hmm.
seeing the wood snake come out in those ways of seeing this transformational change on the equity and quality of the people and the balance there. So that's
Yeah.
kind of where I'm seeing Libra energy. What other Libra aspects are there?
Yeah, as we're talking about Libra, like we're just kind of looking over the next few signs, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius. I feel the sense that like something is going to come up, like the depths.
Mm,
Like especially because we're entering that time, if you're in, United States, if you celebrate Halloween or um, you know, or like any of those holidays, the pagan holidays during that time, it's like there's a deep sense of like the veil is getting thin,
mm,
and there's so much like that wants to come up. I guess that Scorpio energy is really calling me. But with that Libra, it is that kind of beginning of fall going into the change of seasons, shifting our energy to become more harmonizing, because Libra to me feels like a harmonizing energy. It's the scale. So it wants to kind of keep things harmonized. It wants to make sure all bases are covered.
Yeah, well, and I think to
And
speak to where you're already going with that, and what you're kind of giving me then is I think that this Libra energy is going to kind of balance scales and equalize us out for the
mhm.
Scorpio energy to come in, which is going to blow
Oh
all
yeah,
doors open because of that
for
synergy
sure.
between Scorpio and the wood snake.
Yeah, do you feel it too? Like I feel like Scorpio season is going to be intense. And I feel like things are going to come up, and maybe deep shadows that you visited early on this year might come up during that
Yeah.
time, or things from the depths, like the snake is representing the depths of the waters. And so I wouldn't be surprised that during this time, like even collectively things might start coming up in that Libra season
Well,
into that
I
Scorpio
well, I
season.
mean, even look at the wood dragon Scorpio season. That's when we had the
Oh,
U.S. elections. That's when we had just
yeah.
all the drama, all the things, all the dirt being
Yep.
thrown up. So, I mean, if
Yes.
we think that, I think it's going to be a repeat, even on a higher octave. Honestly, when we enter this
Mhm.
2025 Scorpio season.
But what's beautiful, I want to put a positive light on this, because what's beautiful about all of that, those things being exposed, and kind of like all of that drama, is that what comes after is like a sense of relief. Like, oh, okay, we're done with that. Okay,
Yeah,
let's just like put that to the side and do all the processing we need, integration of that. And also, like, in that, we can kind of show up in a way that feels like, okay, this is the reality, and I'm going to have a little bit more acceptance for the reality that is. And I think
yeah.
that brings us into Sagittarius, because Sagittarius is that fiery, again, that fiery energy that is, I don't know, to me, a lot of the Sagittarian energies and the people that I know are extremely honest, are extremely transparent, like will tell you how they feel, just like no qualms. And that is the energy that we actually need after a deep, intensive time like Scorpio.
Well, and I think the Sagittarius energy is very much so. It's ironic because it's around the holiday season where we're supposed to rest and relax and reflect. But I also think
Hmm.
Sagittarius is very much like an execution, get things done, do what needs to get done here. Because I always
Yeah.
think of Katniss Everdeen, the bow and arrow is a very
Mm,
representative energy of Sagittarius. And it's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
much so, treading forward in any way, shape, and form. And I think that's going to
Mhm.
mix very, very interestingly again with this last leg of the wood snake, because we have Sagittarius, this Jupiter expansion that we've already talked about. We have
Yep.
this fire. And I think that usually December is supposed to, again, be this rest, relaxation, reflection time. I have this feeling
Mhm.
that 2025 December, although we'll be able to find that and hopefully find stillness in that, I think it's going to be a very wild time. That's the best word I have.
For sure, for sure. I mean, I feel it too with that, like just just like cooling off after the Scorpio Sagittarius. Like all of those like energies, I feel like is gonna feed into something very deep. It's gonna take us really, really deep. So again, I think with that winter season, during that time of Sagittarius Capricorn, it's gonna, yeah, take us really deep. It's gonna have us really feel into, okay, well, what did I learn this year? What were the big lessons? What am I still learning? And also, how can I then harvest that? Because around that time is also the beginning of the new year.
Yeah.
So next year in 2026 is going to be the fire horse. And
Ooh.
so that already, like, if you just, the fire horse already sounds intense.
Well,
You know
and
what
the
I
thing
mean?
is,
Like,
is like we were just saying here, and I'm so happy with my intuition. I went with that. Like I was already saying
mm,
that the wood snake was already going to be this huge push forward once entered Sagittarius, and I see why now, because a fire horse seems like it's going to go off into infinity.
yeah, I mean, think about like the wood too, the wood element, just from an elemental perspective, the wood's relationship with fire. Like, we can go in this year in many directions, but may we look at it from like this higher point of view with using the elements. From Chinese medicine, if wood is not nourished, if it's imbalanced, if it doesn't have enough wood energy, it's not going to nourish the fire enough, right? It's going to kind of leave us feeling like fatigued and imbalanced and tired and just like not feeling that inner fire that sparks us and our inspiration for life. But if our wood is too excess, if it's too abundant, it'll push that fire too strongly and cause, symptoms of like anxiety and stress and insomnia. Like it could
Yeah.
exacerbate those things a lot. So I think going into this next year is really important, thinking about how we're going to harmonize the points of our the areas of our life that feel like a little out of balance, not so nourished, like, the garden needs some support, it looks like it's not doing too hot, and areas that are maybe like I'm putting too much energy, I'm spending too much time here, or I'm like I'm it's this area is just like overwhelming and too much. Like finding a way where we can meet the middle ground, because that I think is going to be super important going into that next fire horse year.
Yeah, and I think that'll be my recap for 2025. And the advice there is, I think that because we live in a young society at a young time in a young
Mhm.
place, I think the most important thing to find in the wood snake is those yin aspects, and find that
Mhm.
stillness, find the slowness in the chaos, whether it's a few minutes to take a breath, a few minutes to walk in nature,
Mhm.
few minutes to just freaking close your eyes and block out the light. I think that that's going to be
Mm.
the most important advice in the wood snake year, is find
Yeah.
ways of rest, relaxation, and nourishing yourself.
I love that. And for my recap, I would say something that, as you're speaking, I'm thinking of a river, and I'm just thinking of like commune with water. Like
Mm,
may we listen to nature so that we can know. Like nature already has all the teachings and the things that we need to know and understand. It was developed that way with everything. So
yeah,
can we just find those spaces where we can commune with water, whether it's like your water bottle, like sitting with that before you drink it? Because for me, for my in my case, I just drink my water. I'm like, go, 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 right? But like, can we just like take a moment and just like create that space where we can just allow water to penetrate us in a deeper new way. And that to me feels very wood snake, is like,
yeah,
can may we go deep, may we allow for the transformation and growth to happen, can we inspire a new part of us that is intuitive and is more connected to yin, and also shed some skin that maybe like needs to be shed, and allow newness to happen, that freshness to happen.
Well,
So,
and I think the reason you're called to give that advice is just going back to the Chinese medicine cycle there. Water feeds wood. So if we want to
mhm,
replenish this wood here, nourishing ourselves with yin, with substance, with water, with fluids
yes,
is going to make the nourished year.
for sure. Yes, 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 yes. I love that. All right. Well, any last like reflections or tools or tips that you want to share, Jordan, before we close today?
Absolutely not. Usually I can yap on forever. I feel like this
Yeah.
was so all inclusive and covering that I'm good there.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Well, everyone, we're sending you so many blessings for this year of the wood snake and all of the activities and festivities and transformations that will happen this year. Any last words, Jordan?
No, I would just like to say thank you, and I'm excited for the wood snake year.
I know. We'll see. Let's see. Let's be with the mystery. Thank you, everyone, and we'll tune in with you in the next episode.